Welcome back, everybody, to the Mr. Movie Show. It's Mutant Monday! And today we're going to be discussing the X-Men, the animated series, and go through the first episode pilot. Now, came out in 1992 and lasted to 1997. They actually they're doing a revamp, like a sequel series on Disney Plus later this year called X-Men 97. And this was the second try of a X-Men television series, animated television series. The first one was in 1989 with X-Men Pride of the X-Men animated show called Pride of the X-Men, which was a failed pilot that was done in that was sort of dealt with
Kitty Pryde.
Kitty Pryde is sort of the main character and how she can walk through walls and it dealt with Wolverine as an Australian.
They had Magneto as the
Magneto is pretty much the main villain, and you got to see Magneto's base, Asteroid M, and I just remember it dealing with sort of like the animation was they kind of it was like a 22-minute pilot, so it moved. You watch it. It's interesting. You watched it as a kid. It was like, God, that felt forever. And then you watch it now. It's like, oh, that was 22 minutes. Like, God, that went by pretty fast. But you can find that on Disney or on YouTube anywhere. But we're going to discuss the animated series from 1992 to 1997. They're bringing it back to Disney Plus, called X-Men 97. Later this year, I think, from what I've heard. But so the first episode is called Night of the Sentinels.
Right.
And
was Steve? Did you watch this growing up?
Yes, I did.
Right. No, I remember because oh my God, just the theme song is just like right. It's just so amazing.
The electric guitar.
I don't know if it's just because it's probably just lots of nostalgia, but it's like this and like the Power Rangers. It was like really cool. I don't know. It seemed like the theme songs were cooler back then.
I think they really worked on the theme songs. But with X-Men, and what I liked about this episode is you've got Wolverine. You kind of focus on Jubilee, which they kind of did the same thing with Rogue in the movies.
Right. Yeah, I think it's sort of how they introduce, instead of like going through everyone's origin stories, like, okay, here's like a new mutant, and how do they, find about all the other
X-Men
mutants?
And kind of how do I deal with it? And and it's pretty, because like in the going back to the 80s pilot, they had to go like, this is Cyclops, he has optic blast. This is Colossus, he has titanium skin. This is Wolverine, the Dazzler, and but this one they pretty much go, they don't really kind of give you the origin that much. They just sort of tell you who the characters, and you pretty much have your three. It's pretty much Jubilee, Storm, Rogue, Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Gambit. And Cyclops and Jean Grey are a couple, which they usually are in the comic books and in the movies. But let's get to Night of the Sentinel. Night of the Sentinel starts out with sort of the Sentinels are actually around looking for mutants at malls and stuff.
Yeah, and I think they're specifically looking for Jubilee because her parents have signed her up for the Mutant Registration
Act, which is done by Mr. Gyrick. Now, Mr. Gyrick is sort of he's really the kind of human antagonist.
Yeah.
To in this animated series, and he was also Boyless. Who was it? Who's the scientist that creates the Sentinels?
I can't remember his name.
He in X-Men Days of Future Past.
Right.
He was played by Peter Dinklage.
Oh, right.
So that's kind of how.
He's in here too, sort of in passing, just like
yes,
make my robots faster.
Make my robots faster. Minions everywhere. But this one deals with Jean Grey or
Jubilee.
Jubilee. She's basically and I like what the X-Men are. It's just about the metaphor of being an outcast and sort of trying to find your way. And I think even in the X-Men the movie, they have like kind of a coming out where it's like, don't you feel like you don't want to be a mutant? With Iceman, if you remember in X2.
Right.
You know, but what I liked about, you know, and this show pretty much, it deals with, I think, a cluster of mutants. But they say it's a school, but they don't get any education.
They learn how to use their powers.
Oh, yeah, but they don't get a formal education. Not like in the movies where they actually got an education. But what I liked about this one is that you got to see kind of, you know, Beast.
Right. I really like Beast in this one because he's like always just like reciting poetry throughout pretty much the whole thing. I don't know.
He's pretty. I liked him because he was pretty smart and he had, or
right.
you know, he's very much like he's very like very knowledgeable.
Yeah, he's like a philosopher.
Philosopher, yeah. And then you had Gambit, who was Cajun. He has,
right.
And I don't know. I think in the comics he had like black with red eyes as well. But in this series he does.
Yeah, he has
too,
yeah.
as you can see on the screen. And he and Rogue kind of have a relationship, which I think they do in the comics. Then you had Cyclops. He's the leader of the group, and Cyclops, you know, I've heard from a lot of like comic book fans, he's a lot more of a badass in the X-Men in the comics, or you know, he's got more of a character, but he's kind of a straight stiff in this one. Don't you
right?
think?
Yeah, that's where they portrayed him in like the live action movies too, somewhat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I felt like with the live action ones is that they were. It was kind of interesting that the live action ones, they sort of focus so much on Wolverine, which is okay, but you know, there's so many other mutants you can really focus on too.
But it's Hugh Jackman.
It's Hugh Jackman, and Hugh Jackman owns that character. But like, what I like about this one is, in the animated series, it's very much like Jubilee. She blows up. She plays a video game.
Yeah, I think
at an arcade and it blows up. Now this is like during the time of Sega Genesis and Nintendo, so it wasn't like the animation was, or the graphics were that great. But,
right.
And then I think her stepfather or her foster father says, "Look what he did to my VCR." You know, and then you had the Sentinels. And the Sentinels were pretty cool looking. You actually get to see them in semi-action in X-Men 3.
Yeah, and they are ginormous.
Ginormous.
They're like 3 stories tall.
Yeah, so they come to the mall, and they're like, "We're looking for Jubilee," or, you know, Mutant. And then Rogue and Storm are shopping.
Right.
And Rogue sees it, and she starts flying, because apparently in the comics, she held on to Miss Marvel for too long and absorbed all her powers.
Right.
And I think in an episode of X-Men, Miss Marvel comes back and is pissed still, as she should be. Because I do remember watching an episode of the X-Men on that. But what I liked about, you know, but Storm, she kind of like, she can wear regular clothes, and all she got to do is lightning her white.
Oh, yeah, she can sort of do like a morphin time.
It's morphin time, yeah, kind of thing. And then, so they fight the Sentinels at the mall, and then they bring Jubilee back to
the mansion.
And then she kind of pretty much finds all the characters.
Yeah, she sort of like breaks out.
She breaks out,
and
you know, she breaks out and she sees Beast, who's performing some scientific chemistry, and then you have Morph. No, before we go to Morph, did she meet Wolverine and Gambit as they're fighting in the danger zone?
She meets them when she starts to run away into the danger room. Yeah.
Danger room. Okay, and then Morph is like, or not Morph. Gambit's like, "What are you doing here?" Pull my teeth, and Wolverine is just like hiding, and you know, and Wolverine. I think this show made Wolverine the character he is today.
Yeah.
Or, you know, really sort of extradited him, or, you know, really made him something. And then you have Morph, who is pretty much made. I think I was listening to a podcast about the X-Men animated series from 1980, and they said Morph was pretty much made for this show so that so Wolverine could mourn him.
Yeah,
because
spoilers were Morph dies in the first episode.
But the only reason why Morph is important because he makes Wolverine laugh. So but like Morph came back in the sequential episodes, and he's like pissed at Wolverine, and you can tell the difference because his like eyes have like these like purple.
He's got evil eyes
or something. And but that's the thing. I mean, what was your thoughts on like let me rephrase it. So I like Morph, and Morph is just a character that I think the show invented.
Yeah.
Like for this show, what was your thoughts on this? Because I mean, this is a show that I like pretty much would want to watch,
right,
every Saturday morning or something,
Right. I guess this first, extended episode was a little bit rough from what I remember. I guess I had pretty
high expectations.
Just like, for watching it as a little kid, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the best thing ever.
And I think
it gets better later on, right? Like,
it does. Like, it deals with like the Savage Land, and it deals with a lot of. It's interesting how this show does well with persecution,
right?
And kind of talking about how, like they're like I think in a couple episodes after this, the Beast is on trial.
Okay.
For what he did at the registration thing. And Nightcrawler is later in the show. Nightcrawler shows up. I think in I've got the DVD in Volume 2. In Volume 2, he's very much because in the comics he's very religious. Okay. Which they kind of showed it with X-Men 2, but. I like this. I mean, the first episode, it's a pilot. You kind of got to, run through exposition. It's a little, it has a more cohesive story than Pride of the X-Men, where Pride of the X-Men was like, here are the X-Men. Then they have to find Cerebro's power source. And Kitty Pryde has, Nightcrawler might die because he can't get the connection. But this one, it's more of like, we got to save Jubilee, that kind of thing.
Right. What do you think? Like, one of your favorite scenes was from the
pilot?
Yeah, from these two.
From the pilot, I think it's probably seeing the mutants kind of going through, like the day, like kind of like Wolverine and Gambit fighting,
right?
Beast doing chemical things,
right?
And Storm is sort of like kind of the second command to Charles, to Cyclops.
Yeah, I really liked when when they were breaking into the registration facility where Wolverine says he can smell the infrared.
Yeah, that was.
There's some pretty good like sort of funny one-liners.
Well, it's kind of like I like it like Beast, when he's like going, as someone says, Eureka.
Oh right. And also like what was another? I really liked how I think Jubilee was like trying to like come back to her parents or her foster parents to see if they're okay, and it sort of pans over and you see a sentinel like hiding in the alleyway. And he's like three stories tall.
Interesting. I was watching the Nostalgia Critic on YouTube. Did a whole X-Men month. Every March he does like a kind of a topic month. Like this past year he did Dark Knight. But he did the X-Men, and he did all three X-Men movies, all four he did X-Men 1 to X-Men Wolverine, Origins Wolverine. And then he actually interviewed the creators of this show.
Okay.
And it was interesting kind of how Fox Kids wanted to market it, and, you know, and how people, and almost they were kind of like this, because I think because the Pride of the X-Men failed, they were worried about this one failing as well. But that's kind of thing. I mean, this show is sort of like, it's nostalgia for me.
Definitely.
But I kind of like how, you know, each character has something to do. Like, there's a lot more in depth than just, we're heroes, we're villains. They're more complex than just, like, this one, I think, really brought Magneto, because I think the second episode is called Enter Magneto or something, and Magneto and Charles Xavier, which you really see a real bond in the X-Men movies, not as much as X-Men the animated, the 80s movie show where it was like, I'm Magneto, I'm here to conquer the world, ha 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 ha.
Right.
Whereas, you know, this one, they have sort of that same thing same kind of mutual respect. I mean, I think a lot of people, when, you know, you can look at, it came out in the, X-Men originally came out in the 60s, I think 63, 64, civil rights was going on, so there was sort of a Martin Luther King, Malcolm X kind of thing with Magneto and Professor X. But I liked it. You know, he has his hover chair.
I know, yeah. One thing I did like about this episode, so, like, you know, they showed Professor X and Jean Grey somewhat, but they didn't, sort of like, she already introduced a whole lot of characters, so they sort of, like, didn't introduce everybody all at once.
Well, and I think that would have been too much, especially for, like, a kid. You're like, okay, who's this character? Because, like, even for, like, a show, like, because I think with, like, you know, people ask, a lot of people say, and I've probably mentioned this on the Spider-Man episode, but, you know, why do comic books have to redo, like, tell the origin story? Well, everyone's comic is their first comic. And I think for us, this, and even Batman the Animated Series, is our probably first introduction to the Batman, or to these superheroes, don't you think?
No, yeah, definitely.
You know.
So I guess it goes, if you have to ask, who's your favorite mutant? Wolverine. Okay. What about before the live action? Like, is this also from animated?
I've been a fan of Wolverine with the anime. Just the yellow and blue and just the badass attitude.
Right.
But I do like, I mean, I feel like Cyclops gets I think in the comics he's more of a, because in the comics he's dated he's married to Jean Grey, but he's also dated Emma Frost.
Okay.
So he's kind of, but like, I think, you know, what's your favorite X-Men? I mean, I think they're all good, you know, really interesting characters, but when you look at, you know, I think Wolverine is just he's sort of made that, you know, of kind of incorporated that.
Oh, and I guess we got to mention the sound effects for his claws in the show, like when it cuts into things. Yeah, I don't know. That's a pretty good sound effect.
Well, and I like how he's like, you know, especially like with that and Cyclops's
right. It's optic blast.
Optic blast, and like, you know, they're in, like, you know, there's in Gambit's.
Yeah, it's a cart.
Now Gambit, I think, is sort of like, he's never been used. Like, I don't think I've seen him in anything other than this animated series. Was he in Evolutions?
Dang, I'm trying to remember. He was in one of the movies.
I know he was in X-Men Origins Wolverine, where he was like, Gambit was his, like, he was playing poker. Yeah, they were like, just showed, and it was gosh, what's his name? The guy that was in John Carter.
Oh, the Mars movie.
Taylor something. Tyler.
I can't remember.
But he was sort of like, I mean, he was underused, and I think they wanted to get, and I think Channing Tatum wants to be. Well, I think
I don't see it.
At the time. Okay. I think Channing Tatum was supposed to be in X-Men Apocalypse.
Okay.
But, you know. But yeah, I was sort of like, I felt like it was a pretty good first episode. I like how they have, like, except for Wolverine, I think Wolverine has it on his belt buckle, but like they have like the little communication.
No, yeah, it's just one thing. I sort of like love these like loud costumes.
Yeah.
I know, like, I don't know. I think they got better with the X-Men, like the live action movies. But like, like the first one, they're sort of like just like the dark.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like, I mean, there is that line in X-Men 1 where he goes,
oh right,
where he's like going, you actually go outside of these? You go outside of these things? He says, what do you expect? Yellow spandex? And you got the yellow spandex. And in the 80s show, he actually had the red or kind of orange and brown.
Oh right, that color.
Outfit. And in a deleted scene of the Wolverine, Wolverine 2, the one where he goes to Japan.
Yeah.
He's on a plane ride back to America, and she gives him a box, and in the box is the
suit or the more yellow one.
I don't know if it's
yellow
orange
one.
Or yellow.
Yeah.
I think it might be orange.
Yeah, I think more orange. Yeah.
Orange or yellow, but yeah, then they actually had a animated series back in 2002.
Oh right.
X-Men Evolutions. Now Evolutions had like it dealt. I liked Evolutions because Mystique was sort of kind of like the headmistress.
Yeah, that was more like the teens.
Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah. Oops. Sorry.
The headmistress of the and teens and so I feel like with
because that one really brought back. I think Kitty Pryde was one of the main characters in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Spike, who was like Storm's nephew, and I think they just kind of created that for purposes, but it dealt with, I like the school thing of all, vibe to it. And Jean Grey, and I think they were all still in school.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, this show really worked. I think it has very, as the show goes on, it has, like, it deals with, like, Nightcrawler's religion and how he's a really strong Catholic.
Right.
And, and it deals with sort of, the, freaks kind of thing.
Yeah. I remember, of course, it's been a long time. This one, like, sort of gets out there and then sort of, like, this is, like, the breadth of characters that introduce, like, because it has, like, the whole, I forget the alien races.
It's not the Kree. The Cheyenne, something like this.
Yeah. I think that's something like that.
And that's like Professor. I mean, because I think they took a lot of it from the comic books too.
Right.
So I mean, I love this show. I think, not just nostalgia,
right,
but just because as an X-Men fan.
Okay.
And I'm wearing an Incredibles shirt, but I don't have an X-Men shirt. But
all right, Steve, just to be the devil, who's your least favorite X-Men in this episodes?
I don't know. Probably Jean Grey, because she doesn't do anything.
Okay. For me, it has to be Morph.
It has to be Morph. You don't like Morph?
I didn't like Morph from the start.
Sorry, you're like
his voices.
He doesn't have like I think Morph felt like, I don't know, it felt like they just threw him in there. I feel like the only reason why I like Morph is just because he can like change into anything. But you're kind of right. He just doesn't have any character.
Yeah, I don't know. He just sort of, I don't know.
What would you give this first episode, Jay? Like, on a scale, not maybe like a scale, like a star scale.
Maybe 3.5. It's sort of rough. Like, there's a lot of nostalgia. I'm fairly certain this series gets way better as it goes on.
Like, it gets really, I think, well, that's the thing. I think, and I talked to somebody about, or I listened to a podcast where they review television series that lasted one season or less, and they said that a lot of shows, really, if they don't catch it, his thought is, if you don't catch their stride by episode 5, you're not.
Yeah.
And I think this one, this first episode is just sort of like, and they probably, it's a pilot, they've got to just throw it together and just to see what people, are going to like about it.
Yeah. Well, what would you give this episode from the star rating?
Probably a 4, I
4?
guess. I'm not. I think it's the first episode. It wasn't like, it's not a pilot that I felt like like House of Cards was a pilot that got me right out the gate. You know, I was a fan. You know, it's like, ooh, this is really interesting. With this one, after probably episode 5, I really got into it. But I'm also an X-Men fan, so you know, I think you can kind of look at it. Now, I'm excited to see what they do in '97. So
I guess with this, is this like a remake or is like
well, this show lasted from '92 to '97. So I think this is a not a remake, but like a continuation.
Okay.
That's why they called it X-Men '97.
Okay. Do you know if it's going to be? I guess for me, I'm always missing like 2D animation. Do you know if it's going to be like a 3D or a 2D animation?
It's 2D. I'll have to look.
Okay.
But anyway, that's my thoughts on X-Men.
Night of the Sentinels.
And Night of the Sentinels. We'll be back for maybe another episode of X-Men Episode 2 or Cobra Kai. We don't know. Well, thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe.